He hadn't slept properly in weeks. Not since the board meeting where his CFO had quietly warned him about liquidity gaps. Not since the charity gala where his wife, Clara, had looked at him not with anger, but with a quiet sorrow that cut deeper than any accusation. And certainly not since the night he'd snapped at her for asking, gently, if he remembered their wedding anniversary. "Mr. Whitmore?" His assistant's voice broke through the silence. "The Singapore call is on line 2. Daniel didn't turn. Tell them I'll call back." Pause. Then softer. "Sir, you've said that 3 times today." He finally turned, his jaw tight. "Then tell them I'm busy rebuilding a legacy, not babysitting time zones." The assistant retreated, and Daniel exhaled, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. He walked back to his desk, where a framed photo sat slightly askew. Him and Clara, 10 years younger, standing on a sunlit beach in Costa Rica, barefoot, laughing, her hand in his like it belonged there, like it always had. He picked it up, thumb brushing the glass. Back then, success hadn't been measured in stock prices or magazine covers. It had been measured in shared sunsets, in late-night prayers before bed, in the way Clara would hum old hymns while making coffee on Sunday mornings. But somewhere along the way, ambition had whispered louder than love. "You've built an empire," he muttered to himself, voice rough. "So why does it feel like you've lost everything?" His phone buzzed. A message from Livia. "The investors loved your pitch today. You're magnetic, Daniel. They see what I see. A man who changes the world." He read it twice, and for a fleeting second, it filled the emptiness. Just a second, because deep down, beneath the accolades and the tailored suits and the private jets, Daniel knew the truth. He hadn't changed the world. He'd only changed himself into someone Clara no longer recognized. He placed the photo face down on the desk. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, a man stood alone in a room full of everything he'd ever wanted, and nothing he truly needed. And in that silence, God waited. Not with thunder, not with judgment, but with a soft knock came at the door. "Clara, you awake?" Miriam's voice was warm, laced with concern. "Yes," Clara answered, voice barely above a whisper. She cleared her throat, stood, and opened the door. Miriam stood there in a faded floral robe, 2 mugs of steaming tea in her hands. "I made chamomile. Thought you might need it." Clara managed a small smile. "Thank you." They sat at the kitchen table, sunlight dancing on the chipped ceramic tiles. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Miriam reached across and gently covered Clara's hand with her own. "He didn't even let you explain, did he?" Clara looked down at her tea, steam curling like unanswered prayers. "He didn't want to hear," he said. "Our lives had grown in different directions." Her voice cracked. "But Miriam, I never stopped walking toward him. Even when he turned away, I kept praying, kept hoping." Tears welled, but she blinked them back. Not out of pride, but out of faith. Because somewhere between the slammed door and the taxi ride through the rain, she'd made a promise to God. "If this is your will, then carry me through it. But don't let me lose you in the pain." Miriam squeezed her hand. "You know what I've always admired about you, Clara? You love like Christ loves. Patient, kind, even when it's not returned." Clara finally looked up, eyes glistening. "But what if loving like that isn't enough?" "Oh, honey," Miriam said softly. "It's more than enough. It's eternal. Daniel may not see it now, but one day, he'll look back and realize he walked away from grace itself." Clara exhaled, shoulders loosening just a fraction. She thought of the garden she used to tend behind the mansion, the roses she'd planted on their 5th anniversary, the little bench where she'd read psalms every morning. She'd left it all behind without a word of bitterness. Not because she didn't hurt, but because she knew bitterness was a prison, and she'd already given her heart to a God who sets captives free. Later that afternoon, as she folded laundry in the quiet house, her phone buzzed. A notification from the bank. Her personal account frozen. Daniel's lawyers had flagged it as marital asset under review. She stared at the screen, breath catching. No access to her own money, no job, no home, just faith and the clothes on her back. For a moment, fear rose like a tide. But then she remembered the words she'd read that morning in Matthew 6 verse 26. Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? She placed the phone down gently, walked to the window, and watched a sparrow hop along the fence. I'm still yours, Lord, she whispered. And if you fed Elijah by ravens, you'll feed me too. That evening, as the sun dipped below the rooftops, Clara knelt beside her bed again, not to plead for Daniel's return, not to ask for revenge or riches, but simply to say, use this pain, make something beautiful from it, and if I never step foot in that mansion again, let my life still point to you. Outside, the world kept turning, but inside that humble room, a quiet strength was but memories still crept in, uninvited. One rainy Tuesday, while sorting donated clothes at the pantry, she found a child's coat, navy blue, soft wool, with tiny embroidered stars along the cuff. Her breath hitched. She'd bought that coat for the baby they'd lost. She and Daniel had never spoken of it much after the miscarriage. He'd buried himself in work. She'd buried her grief in scripture. They'd mourned in parallel lines that never met. Clara, Pastor Evans approached, his voice gentle. You okay? She quickly folded the coat, tucking it into a bin. Yes, just remembering. He studied her for a long moment. You know, grief doesn't expire, but neither does hope. She nodded, but inside, a question stirred. One she'd avoided for years. Had their marriage died long before Daniel asked her to leave? That night, unable to sleep, she opened her journal, the one she'd kept since their first date. Page after page told a story not of grand romance, but of slow erosion. The canceled anniversary dinners, the I'll be home soon texts that turned into silence, the way Daniel's eyes would glaze over when she spoke of her dreams for their community outreach foundation. She remembered one evening, 2 years ago, standing in the marble foyer of the mansion, watching him walk in late. Again, tie loosened, phone pressed to his ear. Daniel? She called softly. He barely glanced up. Not now, Clara. Big merger tomorrow. But it's our wedding anniversary. He paused, then sighed, as if she'd asked him to move a mountain. We'll celebrate next week. I promise. He never did. She'd told herself it was stress, that he was building something for their future. But now, in the stillness of Miriam's spare room, the truth settled over her like a heavy shawl. He hadn't just drifted. He'd chosen to look away, again and again. And yet, she'd stayed, not out of fear, but out of love. Out of a stubborn, holy hope that the man she married was still in there, buried beneath the suits and spreadsheets and ego. A knock at the door startled her. Clara? Miriam's voice was urgent. There's someone here to see you. At this hour, heart pounding, she followed Miriam to the living room. Standing by the window was a man in a dark overcoat, rain dripping from his shoulders. Not Daniel. Older. Familiar. Mr. Langston? Clara whispered. Elias Langston, Daniel's former business partner. The one who'd left Whitmore Holdings after a bitter falling out over ethics. A man known for his integrity and his quiet faith. Clara, he said, turning. His eyes were kind, weary. I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. She nodded, throat tight. Thank you. He stepped closer. I also heard you've been helping at the church, running the housing initiative they shelved last year. She blinked. How did you? Your name still carries weight in certain circles, he said gently. And not just because of Daniel, because of you. He paused, then reached into his coat and pulled out a folder. I've been watching you, Clara. Not in a strange way, he added quickly, seeing her hesitation, but as a man who believes God places people in our path for a reason. He opened the folder. Blueprints, financial projections, a logo, New Haven Homes. I've been looking for someone to lead a new affordable housing project, he said. Someone with vision, compassion, and a backbone. Someone who won't cut corners for profit. Clara stared at the papers, pulse quickening. This was the very project she'd proposed to Daniel 3 years ago, the one he'd dismissed as not scalable. I don't have funding, she said softly, or a team, or even a bank account right now. Elias smiled. But you have something far more valuable, integrity. And I have resources, and a network of investors who care more about impact than IPOs. He leaned forward. Clara, I believe God is opening a door, not just to rebuild your life, but to build something that will outlast mansions and stock portfolios. Outside, thunder rumbled. Rain lashed the windows. Inside, something shifted. She looked at the plans, homes for single mothers, veterans, families displaced by fire or flood. Not luxury, not status, shelter, dignity, hope. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the terrifying, beautiful weight of possibility. What if I fail? She whispered. Elias's eyes held hers. Then you'll fail with clean hands and a clear conscience. But what if you succeed? What if this is the beginning of something Daniel could never buy? But you were always meant to build. Silence stretched between them, thick with destiny. And in that moment, Clara didn't see a business proposal. She saw an altar, a chance to turn her pain into purpose, to prove that love isn't measured in square footage, but in how many lives you. Clara sat at the head, her hands steady despite the tremor in her chest. Elias had kept his word. 3 ethical investors were present, all believers, all committed to more than profit. They'd reviewed her plan, asked hard questions, and now, silence hung in the air as the lead investor. A soft-spoken woman named Grace Chun leaned forward. Clara, she said, your projections are solid, your heart is clear, but there's one thing I need to know. Can you lead this if Daniel Whitmore tries to interfere? The room stilled. Clara's breath caught. She hadn't considered that. Not really. She'd been so focused on building something new. She hadn't prepared for the ghost of her past to step into the light. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed on the table. A text from an unknown number. Heard you're playing CEO now. Cute. Her stomach dropped. She knew that tone. Cold. Mocking. Livia. Another message followed instantly. Hope you're not planning to use any of Daniel's old contacts. He's made it clear. You're persona non grata in his world. Clara's fingers tightened around the phone. Not out of anger, but because the words stung in a place she thought had healed. Grace watched her carefully. Livia Moretti, she said quietly. She's been whispering in boardrooms lately, calling you unstable, saying you walked away from a perfect life because you couldn't handle success. Clara looked up, eyes blazing. Not with rage, but with resolve. Then let my work speak louder than her lies. But that night, alone in Miriam's guest room, doubt crept in like fog. She replayed the early days, how Livia had first appeared at a charity luncheon, all charm and calculated smiles. How she'd praised Daniel's vision, flattered his ego, subtly mocked Clara's quaint little Bible studies. How, over months, she'd inserted herself into meetings, then dinners, then late-night strategy calls. Clara had said nothing, not because she was blind, but because she trusted Daniel to choose wisely. She remembered the night she finally confronted him. Who is she to you, Daniel? She'd asked, standing in the study, voice trembling but clear. He hadn't looked up from his laptop. She's brilliant, Clara. She sees the future. You keep looking back. I'm looking at us, she'd whispered. Are you? He'd finally met her eyes, then cold, distant. Maybe we want different things. And just like that, 12 years of love had been reduced to a difference in wants. Now, as rain tapped against the window, Clara opened her Bible to Psalm 27. Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. But it wasn't her parents who'd forsaken her. It was the man who'd vowed to love her as Christ loved the church. A knock at the door. Miriam entered, holding a steaming mug. You're thinking about him again. Clara didn't deny it. I keep wondering, did he ever really see me? Or was I just part of the image? The perfect wife for the perfect empire. Miriam sat beside her. Maybe he didn't see you then, but the world will see you now. And maybe, just maybe, he'll see you too when it's too late. The words hung in the air, heavy with prophecy. The next morning, Clara stood before the empty lot that would become New Haven's first community. 30 modest homes, a garden, a chapel. Workers were arriving. Blueprints fluttered in the breeze. Then, a black luxury sedan pulled up. Her heart stopped, but it wasn't Daniel. Livia stepped out, heels clicking on the gravel, designer coat cinched tight against the morning chill. She approached with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Clara, playing in the dirt now. Clara didn't flinch. Building homes for people who've lost everything. Something you wouldn't understand. Livia's smile tightened. Careful. Daniel's watching, and he doesn't like loose ends. Is that a threat? It's a warning. Livia stepped closer, voice dropping. You think this little project makes you noble? It just proves you've got nowhere else to go. He's moved on. We're engaged. The words landed like a stone in Clara's chest, but she refused to let them sink her. She looked Livia straight in the eye. Then, congratulations. But remember this, empires built on sand don't last. And love that needs to tear others down was never love at all. Livia's smirk faltered, just for a second. As the car drove away, Clara turned back to the lot, hands in her pockets, wind in her hair. She didn't feel victorious. She didn't hear him come in. Clara. His voice was flat, final. She turned. Daniel stood in the doorway, still in his robe, but his eyes were dressed in armor. Cold, polished, impenetrable. Can we talk? He asked, though it wasn't really a question. She set down her mug. Of course. He didn't sit, didn't look at her, just stared out the window at the skyline he'd conquered. This isn't working anymore. Her breath stilled. What isn't? This life. Us. He finally turned, and the distance in his gaze made her feel like a stranger in her own home. We want different things, Clara. You're content with this. He gestured vaguely, at the quiet kitchen, the open Bible, the life she'd built in the margins of his ambition. I need someone who moves at my pace, who sees the world the way I do. Her heart cracked, but her voice didn't shake. Is there someone else? Pause. Too long. I didn't come here to hurt you, he said, avoiding the question. But staying together out of obligation, that's not love. That's prison. She stepped closer, not to plead, but to see him. Really see him. Daniel, do you remember our vows? For better or worse wasn't a suggestion. It was a covenant. Before God. He flinched just slightly. God doesn't micromanage boardrooms, Clara. No, she said softly. But he sees the heart. And mine has never stopped choosing you. He looked away again. Then maybe that's the problem. You keep choosing a version of me that doesn't exist anymore. Silence stretched, thick with everything unsaid. The late nights she'd waited up for him, the miscarriage they'd never grieved together, the way he'd stopped holding her hand in church. Finally, he spoke, voice low. I've arranged for you to stay at the downtown suite for a few weeks, until you find something more suitable. More suitable than your wife? The words slipped out, raw but not bitter. He didn't answer. She walked to the bedroom without another word. Packed slowly, not with anger, but with sorrow, like folding the clothes of someone who had already died. She left behind the diamond necklace he'd given her on their 10th anniversary, took only her grandmother's Bible, her journal, and the small wooden cross Daniel had carved for her on their honeymoon. Back when his hands still knew how to create, not just acquire. When she wheeled her single suitcase to the foyer, he was waiting. I'll have my lawyer send the papers, he said. She stopped, looked at him one last time. Not with hate, but with a love so deep it ached. Daniel, if you ever feel lost, don't look for me in this house. Look for me in the one who never leaves. Then she walked out. The elevator doors closed. And just like that, 12 years of marriage ended not with a scream but with silence. Outside, rain began to fall. She didn't call a cab. She walked, Each step down the mansion's grand driveway felt like shedding a skin. The gates, wrought iron, gilded, symbols of everything he thought mattered, closed behind her with a soft, final click. She didn't look back, but as she turned the corner onto the quiet street, tears finally came. Not for the life she'd lost, but for the man he'd become. And in that moment, soaked by rain and grief, Clara Whitmore did the most radical thing of all. She forgave him, not because he deserved it, but because the God she served had forgiven her first. And somewhere, miles away, in a penthouse that suddenly felt too large, then the front door opened. Miriam stood there in flannel pajamas, eyes wide. Without a word, she rushed out, barefoot, and pulled Clara into a hug so tight it squeezed the last of the tears from her eyes. "Oh, honey," Miriam whispered into her hair. "You're home." Inside, the house smelled of cinnamon and old books. Warm, lived in, real. Miriam wrapped her in a thick blanket, pressed a mug of hot tea into her hands, and sat beside her on the couch, silent, just being there in a way Daniel hadn't been in years. After a long while, Clara spoke, voice raw. "I didn't know where else to go." "You didn't have to know," Miriam said gently. "You just had to come." That night, lying in the guest room with the hum of the old furnace beneath her, Clara stared at the ceiling and let herself feel it all. The betrayal, the loneliness, the terrifying uncertainty of a future she hadn't chosen. But beneath the pain, something else stirred. A quiet whisper, steady as breath. "I have not left you." The next morning, Miriam didn't ask questions. She simply handed Clara a church bulletin over breakfast. "Pastor Evans is starting a new ministry for women in transition. Thought you might want to join." Clara hesitated. "I don't know if I'm ready to be around people yet." "It's not about being ready," Miriam said, stirring honey into her tea. "It's about showing up. Broken is welcome there." So Clara went. The church basement was modest. Folding chairs, a coffee pot, a whiteboard with grace over guilt, written in blue marker. A dozen women sat in a circle, some with tired eyes, some with children clinging to their legs, all carrying invisible weights. Pastor Evans welcomed her with a nod, not a spotlight. "We're glad you're here, Clara. No need to speak. Just listen." And as the women shared stories of divorce, addiction, loss, shame, Clara realized something. She wasn't alone. Her pain had a name, yes, but it wasn't unique. And in that shared brokenness, grace began to bloom. One woman, Rosa, a single mother who'd fled an abusive marriage, sat beside her afterward. "You're Daniel Whitmore's wife, aren't you?" Clara tensed. "Was." Rosa didn't gawk, didn't flinch, just nodded. "Then you know what it's like to lose everything you thought defined you." Clara looked at her, really looked, saw the scar on her wrist, the strength in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "I do." "Good," Rosa said, squeezing her hand. "Then you know you're not ruined. You're being remade." That week, Clara started volunteering at the pantry, sorting cans, packing boxes, listening more than she spoke. She met veterans sleeping in cars, teens aging out of foster care, elderly widows choosing between medicine and meals. And with each face, her grief began to shift. Not disappear, but transform. It became fuel. One evening, as she stacked diapers for a young mother, Pastor Evans approached. "You've got a gift, Clara, not just for organizing, but for seeing people, really seeing them." She smiled faintly. "I just remember what it felt like to be invisible." He studied her. "God doesn't waste pain. He redeems it." She didn't answer. But that night, as she lay in bed, she thought of the housing project she'd once dreamed of with Daniel, the one he'd called sentimental. What if? The next morning, she woke with a clarity that felt like divine appointment. She pulled out her journal and began sketching floor plans, community gardens, a chapel at the center. Not a mansion, a sanctuary. When Miriam found her at the kitchen table, covered in notes, she grinned. "There she is." "Who?" Clara asked. "The woman who builds, not just survives." Clara looked down at her hands, no longer trembling, but steady, purposeful. I don't have money, Miriam, or a name anymore. Miriam poured her coffee. You have something better. You have a story, and a God who specializes in new beginnings. Not grand, not triumphant, just hollow. Daniel stood in the master suite, the same room where Clara used to leave her lavender-scented lotion on the nightstand, where she'd hum hymns while brushing her hair before bed. Now, the air smelled of Livia's expensive perfume, sharp and synthetic, like everything else about her. She lounged on the chaise by the window, scrolling through her phone, one leg crossed over the other. The gala's next week, she said without looking up. You'll wear the Tom Ford tux, right? The photographers love it. Daniel didn't answer. He was staring at the empty space beside the bed where Clara's Bible used to sit. Daniel, Livia's voice sharpened. Are you even listening? He turned slowly. Do you ever feel like something's missing? She laughed, a light practice sound. Only when my credit limit hits. But that's why you're here, darling, to keep the world spinning. He walked to the window, hands in his pockets. The city glittered below, a kingdom he'd built with his own hands. And yet, for the first time, it felt like a gilded cage. That night, over dinner, catered, silent, perfect, Livia leaned forward, eyes gleaming. I've been thinking, we should host a launch party for the new venture. Invite the right people. Show them we're unstoppable. We, Daniel echoed. Well, of course. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You're the name. I'm the vision. Together, we're inevitable. He set his fork down. Clara used to say success without integrity is just noise. Livia's smile froze. Clara's not here anymore, and frankly, her little moral compass nearly sank your ship. You needed someone who understands the game. I thought I did, he murmured. But the truth was creeping in. Livia didn't admire him. She used him. His name, his network, his wealth. She mirrored back the image he wanted to see. Powerful, desired, in control. But when he looked closer, there was no depth, no warmth, no soul. A week later, during a high-stakes investor call, everything unraveled. One of his oldest partners, Mr. Chun, cut through the pleasantries. Daniel, your liquidity ratios are alarming. And this new venture with Livia, no due diligence, no board approval? What's going on? Daniel glanced at Livia, who sat across the room, suddenly very interested in her nails. I've got it under control, he said tightly. Do you? Chen's voice softened, almost pitying. Because from here, it looks like you're trading legacy for illusion. The call ended. Silence filled the room. Livia stood. Don't listen to him. He's threatened by our momentum. But Daniel was already walking to his study. He pulled up financial reports he hadn't reviewed in months. Contracts signed in haste, partnerships built on charm, not substance. Red flags everywhere. He turned to her, voice low. Did you know the Singapore deal was a shell company? She didn't flinch. Opportunities move fast, Daniel. You taught me that. No, he said, the realization hitting like ice water. I taught you how to win. But Clara, she taught me how to build. Livia's mask slipped. Don't you dare compare me to her. She held you back. Maybe, he whispered, but she never let me lose myself. That night, he sat alone in the darkened living room, the same room where Clara used to light candles on Friday nights and read psalms aloud. He found one still tucked behind the bookshelf. Psalm 37 verse 4. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. He'd spent years chasing desires, power, admiration, control, but never delighting in the one who gave him breath. And now, as the mansion echoed with silence, he finally understood. He hadn't kicked out his wife. He'd kicked out his conscience, his anchor, his grace. Upstairs, Livia packed a designer suitcase, her voice cold from the doorway. If you're going soft, I'm out. I didn't sign up for a midlife crisis. He didn't stop her. When the front door clicked shut behind her, Daniel didn't feel relief. He felt the crushing weight of what he'd done. And for the first time in years, he fell to his knees. Not in a boardroom, not in victory, but in the ruins of his own making, whispering words he hadn't spoken since seminary. God, if you're still there, I don't know how to come back. Outside, the city slept, but inside the empty mansion, a prodigal son had finally come to his senses. And somewhere across town, in a modest house filled with laughter and hope, Clara Whitmore was building a future. Without him, she hadn't slept much, not because of doubt, but because of fire. A holy urgency had taken root in her chest, and it wouldn't let her rest. A knock at the door. Before she could answer, Elias Langston stepped inside, rain glistening on his coat. "You're up early," he said, smiling. "Couldn't wait," Clara replied, heart pounding. "I've been refining the layout. Added a community kitchen so neighbors can share meals, and a prayer garden in the center." Elias studied the plans, nodding slowly. "You're not just building houses, are you?" "No," she said softly. "I'm building home." He looked at her then, not as Daniel Whitmore's ex-wife, but as a leader, a visionary. "I've spoken to the investors. They're in, fully, and there's more." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick envelope. "This came through last night. From the city. They've fast-tracked your zoning approval. Said your proposal embodies the spirit of compassionate development." Clara's breath caught. "But we haven't even broken ground." "Sometimes," Elias said, eyes twinkling, "God moves faster than bureaucracy." She laughed, a real unburdened sound, and for a moment, the weight of the past months lifted. But then her phone buzzed. A news alert. Whitmore Holdings faces liquidity crisis. Major assets to be liquidated. Her smile faded. Elias saw it. "He's selling, Clara. Everything, including the mansion." She stared at the headline, heart twisting. Not with satisfaction, but sorrow. He built that empire thinking it would protect him, but it was never his to keep. Elias leaned forward. "There's something else. The property is going to auction next week. Private buyers only. And I think you should bid." Clara looked up, stunned. "On the mansion?" "Not as a trophy," he said quickly, "but as a symbol. Imagine it, New Haven's flagship center. Counseling rooms where the ballroom was. A shelter for single mothers in the East Wing. The garden you loved? Turn it into a memorial for lost children, yours and others. A place of healing." Tears welled. She thought of the roses she'd planted, the bench where she'd wept after the miscarriage, the quiet mornings when she'd prayed for Daniel's heart. "What if he finds out?" she whispered. "What if he thinks I'm doing this to hurt him?" "Then let your actions speak louder than his assumptions," Elias said gently. "This isn't about him anymore, Clara. It's about what God is calling you to build." That afternoon, she stood on the sidewalk across from the mansion. Its towering gates, its marble columns, its windows like cold, unblinking eyes. She remembered walking out in the rain, suitcase in hand, feeling like her life was over. Now she stood taller, not because she had power, but because she'd been given purpose. Back at the church, she met with Pastor Evans and Rosa. "If we win the bid," she said, voice steady, "this won't be a mansion. It'll be a sanctuary. A place where broken people find hope." Rosa squeezed her hand. "Then we'll pray like heaven depends on it." And they did. That night, Clara knelt by her bed, not asking for victory, but for wisdom. "Lord, if this is your will, open the door. If not, close it gently. But either way, keep my heart clean." The auction came 3 days later. Clara sat in the back of the room, heart hammering, as bids climbed. She'd maxed out her investor line. One more raise and she'd be out. Then silence. The auctioneer's gavel hovered. "Going once, going twice." Clara closed her eyes. For such a time as this, sold to New Haven Community Initiative. She opened her eyes. It was hers, not as revenge, but as redemption. Clara stood in the grand foyer of the mansion for the first time since she'd walked out in the rain. Her boots clicking against the marble floor that once echoed with Daniel's polished shoes and Livia's sharp heels. Now it was silent, waiting, She ran her fingers along the banister of the staircase, the same one she'd climbed every night, hoping to find Daniel still awake, still willing to talk. He never was. Hard to believe it's really ours, Rosa said, stepping in behind her, arms crossed against the chill of the empty halls. Not ours, Clara corrected softly. His. But now, it belongs to the ones who need it most. They walked through room after room, ballroom, library, wine cellar, each space whispering memories she hadn't realized she'd carried. The dining table where she'd set 2 places for weeks after he stopped coming home. The study where she'd found his signed divorce papers tucked under a financial report. But she didn't linger in grief. She measured. Ballroom fits 30 cots easily, she said, pulling out her notebook. We'll keep the chandeliers. They give light, not just luxury. Rosa grinned. You're already seeing it. I have to, Clara said, because if I stop to feel, I might break. But that night, alone in the empty mansion, keys heavy in her coat pocket, she did break. She sat on the cold floor of what would become the counseling room, back against the wall, and let the tears come. Not just for herself, but for every woman who'd ever been told she wasn't enough. For every man who'd traded love for power and didn't realize what he'd lost until it was gone. Her phone buzzed. A text from Elias. Daniel's lawyers just filed an emergency injunction. They're claiming the sale was emotionally motivated and financially irregular. They want the deed frozen. Clara's breath caught. Of course he would fight. Not because he wanted the house, but because he couldn't stand the idea of her owning it. Of her turning his symbol of success into a beacon of grace. She called Elias immediately. Can they stop it? Legally? Unlikely, but they can delay. And delays cost money we don't have. She closed her eyes. Then we move faster. The next morning, she gathered her team. Rosa, Pastor Evans, 2 volunteer architects, and a handful of women from the church who'd known poverty firsthand. We have 1 week, Clara said, standing in the center of the ballroom, voice steady despite the storm inside. Before the injunction hearing, we break ground. Today. But the permits, one architect started, are already approved, she said. And if Daniel wants to drag us through court, let him do it while we're building hope on his front lawn. They worked like warriors. By noon, the marble floors in the East Wing were covered in drop cloths. By dusk, the first wall of the community kitchen was framed. Volunteers hauled out crystal vases and replaced them with toolboxes. The wine cellar became a storage unit for diapers and canned goods. The master suite, once Daniel's sanctuary of solitude, was marked for a nursery for mothers escaping domestic crisis. Every hammer strike felt like a prayer. Every nail a declaration. This place will no longer breed loneliness. It will grow love. But late that night, as Clara reviewed budgets by flashlight in the library, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Silence. Then a voice, hoarse, broken. Clara, her blood turned to ice. Daniel, I heard you bought the house. She didn't lie. I did. Why? The word cracked. To punish me? No, she said softly. To heal others. A long pause. She could hear his breath. Shaky, raw. I'm not who you think I am anymore, he whispered. I know, she said. I saw the news. I'm sorry. You're sorry. He let out a bitter laugh. After everything I did? I'm sorry because I know what it feels like to lose yourself, she said gently. And I pray you find your way back. He was quiet for so long she thought he'd hung up. Then, barely audible, can I see it? Her heart pounded. The house. Yes, not as an owner, just as a man who needs to remember what he threw away. She looked around the library. The shelves still lined with books he never read. The fireplace where she'd sat alone on Christmas Eve. One condition, she said. Anything. You come alone. And you don't speak to anyone but me. I'll be there tomorrow, he said. And just like that, the past knocked on the door of the future. Clara hung up, hands trembling. She wasn't afraid of him, but she was afraid of what his presence might stir. Old wounds, old hopes, old love that refused to die. Outside, the wind howled through the trees. Inside, the mansion held its breath. And now, here he was. His car rolled to a stop at the curb, no driver, no entourage. Just him, in a simple gray coat, hair unstyled, shoulders slumped like the weight of his choices had finally bent him. He stepped out slowly, as if afraid the ground might reject him. Their eyes met. No words, just the wind between them, carrying the scent of wet earth and fresh-cut wood from the construction inside. "You came," she said finally. "I said I would." His voice was rough, stripped of the confidence that once filled boardrooms. "You look well." "So do you," she lied gently. He looked exhausted, hollowed out, but real. She led him through the front gate, past the New Haven Community Center sign they'd hammered into the lawn just yesterday. He flinched when he saw it. Inside, the transformation was undeniable. Tarps covered the marble floors. Sawdust dusted the air. In what used to be the formal parlor, Rosa was painting a mural of doves and olive branches on the wall. Daniel stopped, staring. "You're really doing it." "We already are," Clara said. He walked slowly through the halls, touching a half-installed handrail, peering into a room where bunk beds were being assembled. "This was the music room," he murmured. "You used to play piano here." "I did," she said. "But no one played after you stopped listening." He winced. "I deserved that." They reached the garden, her garden. The roses were still there, though overgrown. The bench where she'd sat after their loss still faced the sunrise. He walked to it, ran a hand over the weathered wood. "I never came out here after you left. Couldn't bear it." Clara stood a few feet away, arms still crossed. Not in defense, but in self-preservation. "Why are you really here, Daniel?" He turned, eyes glistening. "To see if the woman I threw away is still kind enough to let a broken man stand in her light." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked to the rose bush, the one she'd planted the week they found out they were expecting. "I named this one Hope," she said softly. "Even after, I kept watering it, even when it didn't bloom." He stepped closer. "I don't expect you to forgive me." "I already have," she said, turning to face him. "Forgiveness isn't the hard part. It's trust that takes time. And trust isn't rebuilt in a day. It's earned in actions." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I've been going to the church downtown, the one with the red doors." She blinked in surprise. "I know it. I sit in the back. I don't sing. I barely pray. But I listen. And last Sunday, the pastor said something. God doesn't restore what was broken to give it back to the one who broke it, but to show the world that grace is stronger than ruin." Tears pricked Clara's eyes. "That's Pastor Evans." Daniel looked at her, really looked, like he was seeing her for the first time in years. "You've built something beautiful here, Clara. Not because you had money, but because you had heart." "And you?" she asked softly. "What are you building now?" He looked down at his hands, once used to sign billion-dollar deals, now empty. "I don't know yet, but I'm starting with honesty, with humility, with showing up, even when I don't deserve to." Just then, a young woman from the construction team walked in, holding a clipboard. She froze when she saw Daniel. "Oh, Mr. Whitmore, It's okay," Clara said gently. "He's just visiting." The woman nodded, but her eyes held a question. Is he here to take it back? Daniel saw it too, and for the first time, he understood the fear his presence stirred. Not just in Clara, but in everyone whose safety now lived within these walls. He turned to Clara, voice low. "I won't fight the sale. I'll withdraw the injunction today." She searched his face. "Why?" "Because this place, it doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to her." He nodded toward the young woman, who quickly ducked out. "To all of them, and to you." A silence settled between them, different this time. Not heavy with regret, but light with possibility. Before he left, he stopped at the gate. "Can I come back?" Not as Daniel Whitmore, billionaire. Just as a man trying to learn how to love well again. Clara looked at the mansion, no longer a symbol of loss, but of redemption. Then at him, no longer a king, but a seeker. If your actions match your words, she said, you'll always have a place here, not in the mansion, but in the work. He nodded, eyes shining. That's more than I deserve. Grace usually is, she whispered. And as he drove away, Clara didn't watch him go. She turned back to the house, her house, and walked inside to help paint another wall. Because the future wasn't about who owned the past. Crews worked from sunrise to dusk, transforming marble halls into healing spaces. The ballroom became a shelter with cots neatly lined beneath crystal chandeliers that now reflected not vanity, but dignity. The wine cellar, once stocked with vintages Daniel never tasted, was filled with diapers, canned goods, and shelves of children's books. And in the heart of it all, the garden bloomed again, tended by the very women who now called this place home. Clara moved through it all like a quiet storm, calm on the surface, fierce in purpose. She approved floor plans, comforted a teenage mother who'd fled the streets, and even taught a Bible study in what used to be Daniel's private study. Every room reborn felt like a whispered yes from God. But the real test came on a Tuesday morning, just as the first residents were scheduled to move in. Elias rushed into the community kitchen, face pale. Clara, bad news. Her stomach dropped. The injunction? No. Worse. He handed her a tablet. Daniel's primary creditor just filed for emergency asset seizure. They're claiming the mansion was sold below market value to a related party, meaning you, and they want it reclaimed to satisfy his debts. Clara's breath caught. But the sale was public, transparent. We paid fair value. Doesn't matter, Elias said grimly. They're using technicalities. And if the court grants the motion, we lose everything. Today, silence fell over the room. Rosa, who'd been folding linens nearby, froze. Pastor Evans, who'd just arrived with a tray of coffee, set it down slowly. Clara closed her eyes, not in defeat but in surrender. Then we pray, she said. They gathered right there, in the kitchen where stainless steel appliances had been replaced with second-hand stoves and donated pots. Hands joined, hearts laid bare. Lord, Clara prayed, voice trembling but clear, you brought us this far. If this house is yours, no legal loophole can take it. But if it's not, then let your will be done. Just don't let these women lose hope again. Amen. Minutes later, as they stood in stunned silence, Clara's phone rang. It was Daniel. She answered, bracing herself. Clara, he said, voice urgent. I just heard about the creditor. I know, she said softly. I'm calling to tell you, I won't let them take it. You can't stop them, she said. You're not in control anymore. I'm not trying to control, he said. I'm trying to restore. Pause. Then, I've liquidated my remaining shares in the offshore fund, the one Livia pushed me into. It's clean money, ethical, and I'm using it to pay off the creditor in full. Clara's eyes widened. Daniel, that's your last asset. It was never mine, he said quietly. It was always borrowed, and I've spent too long pretending otherwise. Tears filled her eyes. Why would you do this? Because this house, it's not mine to lose. And those women, they deserve safety more than I deserve a second chance. She swallowed hard. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything, he said. Tell your lawyer to expect the wire transfer within the hour. And Clara, don't thank me. Just keep building what I was too blind to see. The call ended. She looked at Elias, at Rosa, at Pastor Evans, all waiting, hoping. He just saved us, she whispered. By noon, the creditor withdrew the motion. The mansion was safe. That evening, as golden light spilled through the newly installed stained glass window in the chapel, donated by a local artisan who'd once been homeless herself, Clara stood alone in the garden. The roses were in full bloom. She touched a petal soft as grace. And for the first time, she didn't just see a house. She saw a testament, not to wealth, not to power, but to the quiet, relentless love of a God who turns broken things into holy ground and broken people into vessels of redemption. Somewhere across the city, Daniel sat in a modest apartment, eating takeout alone, staring at a blank wall. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel empty. He felt free. Heard you emptied your last account to save Clara's little charity project. How noble. Too bad no one's impressed. He stared at the screen, jaw tight. He hadn't spoken to her since she'd walked out of the mansion, suitcase in hand, muttering about wasted potential. He thought that was the end of it. But then another message came. By the way, your name's being dragged through the mud. The press thinks you're bankrupt. Pathetic. And guess who's telling them? His blood ran cold. He called her. She answered on the first ring, voice slick with false concern. Daniel, I was wondering when you'd crawl back. I didn't call to crawl, he said, voice low. I called to ask why you're leaking stories to the press. Oh, please, she scoffed. You think anyone needs me to tell them you're a ghost of your former self? You gave away your last asset to a woman who left you. That's not noble, Daniel. It's desperate. He stood, pacing the tiny room. I didn't give it to her. I gave it to the women in that house. To make things right. Right? She laughed, sharp and hollow. There's no right in business. Only winning and losing. And you lost everything. He stopped, looked out the window at the city lights, once his kingdom, now just a skyline he no longer owned. You were never with me for me, were you? He asked quietly. Pause. Then coldly. I was with you for what you represented. Power, influence, access. You stopped being that the moment you started listening to her sermons. He closed his eyes, not in anger but in clarity. I'm glad I lost you, Livia. She went silent, then voice trembling with fury. Enjoy your little penance, Daniel, but don't expect anyone to remember your name when you're serving soup in that church basement. The line went dead. He set the phone down slowly, and in that moment, something inside him broke. Not in despair, but in release. The last chain of his old life snapped. The need for validation, the hunger for headlines, the illusion that his worth was tied to his net worth. He walked to the closet and pulled out a box he'd been avoiding. Inside, old photos, a few ties, and a small wooden cross Clara had once given him. To remind you that true strength is found in surrender, she'd said. He tossed it in a drawer and forgotten it. Now he held it in his palm, rough edges pressing into his skin. That night he didn't sleep. Instead, he wrote, not a business plan, not a press statement, a letter to Clara, not to win her back, not to explain, just to say what his pride had buried for years. You were right, about everything. Love isn't about grand gestures or perfect lives. It's about showing up, even when you've failed. I failed you, but I'm learning slowly to fail forward. Thank you for building something beautiful from the ruins I left behind. I don't deserve to be part of it, but if there's ever a place for a man who's learning to love like Christ, I'd be honored to serve, even in silence. He sealed it, didn't send it, not yet, because actions had to come first. The next morning, he walked into the downtown church, the one with the red doors, and didn't sit in the back. He walked straight to the pastor after service. I'd like to volunteer, he said, at the community center. In any way they'll have me. Pastor Evans studied him, eyes kind but cautious. You know she'll see you. I hope she does, Daniel said. Not as the man who kicked her out, but as the man trying to walk back in humility. 2 days later, he showed up at the mansion. Not in a suit, but in worn jeans and a plain shirt, holding a toolbox. Clara was in the garden, helping a young mother plant vegetables. When she saw him, their eyes met. No fanfare, no drama, just a man, standing where he once ruled, now asking, without words, for a chance to serve. She didn't smile, didn't frown. She simply nodded toward the east wing. The nursery needs shelves. Roses waiting. He walked past her, shoulders straight but head bowed. And as he disappeared inside the house he'd once owned, Clara turned back to the soil, hands in the earth, heart wide open. Not to the past, but to the slow, sacred work of redemption. But she saw him, She saw the way he knelt to tie a little girl's shoelace when she couldn't reach. The way he stayed late to fix a leaky faucet in the kitchen so the night shift wouldn't be disturbed. The way he listened, really listened, when Rosa shared about her son's struggle with addiction, offering no advice, just presence. Still, Clara kept her distance. Not out of bitterness, but wisdom. Trust, once shattered, doesn't return with a hammer and nails. It grows slowly, like the roses in the garden, one careful tend at a time. Then came the storm. Not metaphorical, real. A late autumn tempest rolled in with howling winds and sheets of rain, knocking out power across the neighborhood. At 2 a.m., the emergency generator in the east wing failed, right where 6 women and 3 children were sleeping. Clara rushed downstairs in her robe, flashlight in hand, heart pounding. Water seeped under the back door. The furnace sputtered. And there, in the dim glow of a work lamp, was Daniel, soaked to the bone, wrench in hand, wrestling with the generator panel. "You shouldn't be here," she said, breathless. He didn't look up. "Neither should you, but someone has to keep the lights on for them." She watched him work, focused, determined, hands trembling not from cold, but from exhaustion. He hadn't slept in 2 days. She knew because she'd seen him leave after midnight, only to return before dawn. Finally, the generator roared to life. Warmth hummed through the vents. He leaned against the wall, wiping rain from his face. "It'll hold till morning." Clara stepped closer. "Why, Daniel? Why are you really here?" He met her eyes then, no armor, no pride, just raw honesty. "Because I finally understand what you've always known. Love isn't a feeling, it's a choice, and I choose to show up, even if you never look at me the way you used to." Her throat tightened. "I don't know if I can." "I'm not asking you to," he said softly. "I'm just asking for the chance to prove I've changed. Not with words, with my hands, my time, my silence." Thunder rumbled outside. Inside, the house breathed safe, warm, alive. Then, a small voice from the hallway. "Mr. Daniel?" They turned. It was Lily, the 5-year-old whose mother had fled an abusive home. She clutched a stuffed rabbit, eyes wide. The thunder scared me. Without hesitation, Daniel knelt. "Hey, sweetheart, you remember the trick we talked about?" She nodded. "Count the seconds between lightning and thunder." "Exactly. And if it's more than 5, the storm's moving away." He held out his hand. "Want to count with me?" She ran to him, climbing into his lap like he was the safest place in the world. Clara's heart cracked open. This wasn't the Daniel who dismissed her dreams or traded vows for vanity. This was a man remade, humble, gentle, present. Later, as they walked Lily back to bed, Daniel lingered in the hallway. "She called me Mr. Daniel for weeks," he murmured. "Tonight, she just said, Daniel." Clara looked at him, really looked, saw the lines of grief, the shadows of regret, but also something new, peace. "You're not the man I married," she said quietly. His breath caught. "No, I'm not. But maybe," she continued, voice trembling, "you're the man God was always calling you to be." He didn't reply, just nodded, eyes glistening. And in that moment, beneath the flickering hallway light, something shifted. Not a reconciliation, not yet, but a bridge, built not on grand declarations, but on a generator fixed in the rain, a child comforted in the dark, and a love that chose to serve when it could have walked away. "He's here," Rosa whispered, "at the front gate. Says he needs to speak with you. Alone." Clara's breath hitched. She hadn't seen Daniel in 3 days, not since the storm. He'd been working on the west wing, out of sight, out of rhythm with her days. And now, this. "Did he say what it's about?" she asked, voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. Rosa shook her head. "But he looks different. Not sad, not nervous, just resolved." Clara nodded slowly. "Tell him I'll meet him in the garden." She walked through the halls she'd once wandered in loneliness, now alive with laughter and the scent of fresh bread from the community kitchen. Every step felt like crossing a bridge between who she was and who she'd become, and who he might be now, too. He stood by the rose bush, her rose bush, hands in his pockets, shoulders squared but not stiff. When he saw her, he didn't smile, didn't rush, just waited, as if giving her space to decide whether to come closer. She stopped a few feet away. "You wanted to see me?" He turned, eyes clear, calm. "I do, but not for me." That surprised her. "Then why?" He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper, official, stamped, sealed. "I've been accepted into the city's restorative justice program for former executives. Part of the requirement is making amends, not just financially, but personally." She frowned. "And that involves me?" "No," he said gently. "It involves them." He nodded toward the house. "The women here, the ones my choices indirectly hurt, through the culture I promoted, the ethics I ignored, the silence I kept when I should have spoken up." Clara studied him. "Go on." "I've drafted a formal apology," he said, holding out the paper. "Not for the press, not for my reputation, for them. And I'd like to read it, if you'll let me." Her pulse quickened. This wasn't about reconciliation. It was about responsibility. "You realize this could reopen wounds," she said carefully. "Some of these women have only just begun to trust this place is safe." "I know," he said, voice low, "and if you say no, I'll respect it. But if there's even a chance my words could help someone feel seen, then I have to try." She looked past him, to the window where Lily pressed her nose against the glass, watching, to the porch where a young mother rocked her newborn, finally at peace. Then she looked back at Daniel, the man who once saw people as assets, now kneeling in humility before their pain. "Read it to me first," she said. He nodded, unfolded the paper, and began to read, not with the polished cadence of a CEO, but with the raw tremor of a man who'd finally faced his shadow. "To the women of New Haven, I once built an empire on the belief that success meant never showing weakness. In doing so, I created a world where compassion was seen as compromise and integrity as inefficiency. I didn't just fail you, I failed the very image of God in you. I am deeply sorry, and I commit, for the rest of my life, to using whatever influence I have left to lift voices like yours, not silence them." Clara's eyes filled, not because the words were perfect, but because they were true. She took a slow breath. "You can read it, in the chapel, tonight, after dinner." "But Daniel," she met his gaze, "this isn't forgiveness. It's a beginning. I don't expect anything more," he said softly. As he turned to leave, she called after him. "Wait." He stopped. She walked to the rose bush, plucked a single bloom, deep red, velvety, resilient, and handed it to him. "For your lapel," she said, "so they know you came in humility and hope." He took it, fingers brushing hers for just a second. "Thank you, Clara." "No," she said, voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for finally seeing what matters." And as he walked back toward the gate, rose in hand, Clara didn't watch him go. She turned toward the house, toward the women who'd survived, who were healing, who were learning to believe they were worthy of love. Because tonight, in a chapel once built for vanity, grace would speak louder than wealth ever did. And maybe, just maybe, a new story was beginning. Not of return, but of restoration. Not of ownership, but of belonging. And in that garden, beneath a sky clearing after storm, the first true peace between simple wooden chairs, some holding babies, others with hands folded tightly in their laps. They'd come not out of curiosity, but courage, because healing begins when truth is spoken in a safe place. Clara stood near the back, arms crossed, heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She hadn't told Daniel she'd be here. She needed to see, not just hear, how this moment would land. Then the door creaked open. He stepped in alone, no entourage, no armor. Just a man in a plain navy shirt. The red rose Clara had given him pinned carefully over his heart. He didn't walk to the front right away. He paused, eyes scanning the room. Not with the detached gaze of a billionaire surveying a room, but with the humility of someone who finally saw people, not positions. Pastor Evans nodded from the side. "Whenever you're ready, Daniel." He took a breath, walked to the small podium, looked down at his notes, then set them aside. "I won't read from paper," he said, voice rough but clear, "because what I need to say, it's not a script, it's a confession." Silence deepened. "I used to think power meant never needing anyone," he began. "That success was measured in assets, not in how I treated the woman who loved me, or the employees who gave their lives to my vision, or the strangers my choices affected from boardrooms I never left." He glanced at Clara just once, then turned back to the women. "I built a life on sand, and when the storm came, everything washed away, except the guilt. The guilt of knowing I had everything, and chose the wrong things." A young woman in the front row wiped her eyes. She'd once worked in Whitmore Holdings' call center, laid off during a restructuring so Daniel could boost quarterly profits. "I don't expect your forgiveness," he continued, voice breaking slightly. "But I need you to know this. I see you now. I see your strength, your resilience, your dignity, and I am so deeply sorry for the ways my pride, my greed, my silence made your path harder." He paused, swallowed hard. "This place, this sanctuary, you didn't just build it from a mansion. You built it from pain. And if I can spend the rest of my life helping carry even one of your burdens, then maybe my brokenness can finally mean something." Tears flowed freely now, not just from the women, but from Rosa, from Pastor Evans, even from Clara, though she tried to hide them. Then, from the back, a soft voice. "Do you mean it?" Everyone turned. It was Maria, a single mother who'd been evicted from a Whitmore-owned apartment complex after her husband left. She stood, arms crossed, eyes fierce but searching. Daniel met her gaze without flinching. "Every word." "Then prove it," she said. "Not with speeches, with time, with showing up when no cameras are watching." "I will," he said simply. "For as long as you'll let me." Maria studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. That small gesture broke something open in the room, a dam of guarded hearts beginning to thaw. Afterward, as people filed out, murmuring, hugging, some even approaching Daniel to speak quietly, Clara lingered near the door. She didn't go to him. She didn't need to. But as he turned to leave, he saw her. He walked over, stopping just an arm's length away. The rose on his chest was slightly wilted, but still red, still real. "I didn't do this for you," he said softly. "I know," she replied. "That's why it matters." He looked down, then back up, eyes glistening. "I used to think love was about being needed. Now I know it's about being present, even when you're not wanted." "You're wanted here, Daniel," she said, voice trembling. "Not as my husband, not as a billionaire, but as a man who's choosing to do better." He nodded, a single tear tracing his cheek. "That's all I ever wanted to be. For you, for God, for myself." They stood in silence as twilight deepened around them, the chapel behind them now filled with the quiet hum of healing. And in that moment, Clara didn't feel the old ache of betrayal. She felt something new, the fragile, trembling hope that redemption wasn't just a sermon. It was a daily choice. And Daniel? He was finally making it. Outside, the first stars appeared. Inside, two broken people stood on the threshold of something neither dared and Clara. She'd watched, not with suspicion anymore, but with a cautious, growing wonder. Then, on a gray afternoon just before Christmas, she found him in the old library, now a reading room for children, kneeling beside Lily, helping her sound out words in a picture book. His voice was gentle, patient, the way she remembered it being only in their earliest days, before ambition hardened his edges. When Lily ran off to show Rosa her new page, Daniel stood, brushing dust from his knees. He saw Clara in the doorway and froze, just for a second, before offering a small, respectful smile. "Clara, Daniel." She stepped inside, arms loose at her sides, no longer crossed in defense. "You've been here every day, even when it snows. It's warmer inside than out," he said lightly. Then, more quietly, "And my heart's been cold long enough." She looked at him, really looked, saw the lines around his eyes, not from stress now, but from laughter with the kids. Saw the calluses on his hands from sanding wood, not signing deals. Saw a man who'd traded his throne for a toolbox and found peace in the exchange. "I've been thinking," she said, voice soft but steady, "about us." His breath caught. He didn't speak, just waited, as if afraid to break the moment. "I can't undo the past," she continued. "I can't forget the nights I cried alone in this house, wondering if I'd ever be enough. And I won't pretend trust rebuilds overnight." He nodded slowly. "I don't expect you to. But," she said, stepping closer, "I also can't ignore what I've seen. The man who fixes leaky faucets at 2 a.m. The one who sits with Maria when her son's in court. The one who reads to Lily like she's the most important person in the world." Her voice trembled. "That man. I don't know if he's the same one who asked me to leave. But if he's real, if this is real, then maybe God isn't just restoring this house. Maybe he's restoring us." Daniel's eyes filled. He didn't reach for her, didn't try to pull her in, just stood there vulnerable, open. "I'm not the man I was," he said, voice thick, "and I'll never stop being sorry for the pain I caused. But if you're willing, I'd like to walk forward with you. Not as your husband, not yet, but as a friend, as a partner in this work. And if one day your heart says it's safe, then maybe more." Clara looked out the window at the snow-covered garden, the place where she'd once wept in silence, now alive with children's footprints and rows of winter greens. "Trust isn't given," she said. "It's grown. And growth takes time and boundaries." He nodded. "Tell me what you need." She turned back to him, eyes clear, strong. "For now, keep serving, keep showing up. And when you're ready, join our leadership team. Not as Daniel Whitmore, billionaire, but as Daniel, the man who's learning to love like Christ. Sacrificially, patiently, without demand." A tear slipped down his cheek. "I'd be honored." She didn't hug him, didn't take his hand, but she smiled. A real, warm smile that reached her eyes for the first time in years. "Then welcome to the team, Daniel." And as snow fell outside, wrapping the mansion-turned sanctuary in white, something new took root inside. Not a rushed reunion, not a fairy tale fix, but a covenant rebuilt on humility, honesty, and the quiet, daily choice to love well. He no longer stood apart. He sat at the long communal table during planning meetings, listening more than speaking, offering ideas only when asked. He'd helped design the new job training wing, drawing from his business experience, but always deferring to the women who would use it. He'd even started leading a weekly men's group at the church downtown, mentoring young fathers who'd grown up without one. And Clara? She watched him, not with the guarded eyes of the past, but with a softening heart that dared to hope. One evening, as golden hour painted the garden in honeyed light, she found him kneeling by the rose bush, their rose bush, pruning dead stems with careful hands. "You're getting good at that," she said, stepping onto the path. He looked up, smiled. "You taught me. Cut away what's broken so new life can grow." She sat on the bench, the same one where she'd wept after their loss, where he'd stood in shame months ago. Now it felt like sacred ground. "I got a call today," she said quietly, "from the city council. They want to feature New Haven in the annual Community Impact Awards. They asked who to credit as founder." Daniel set down his shears. "And what did you say?" "I said it was built by many hands," she replied. "But I told them the truth. It began with a woman who chose grace over bitterness, and a man who finally learned to kneel." He looked down, emotion tightening his throat. "I still don't feel worthy of that." "Worthiness isn't the point," she said gently. "Grace never was about deserving. It's about receiving, and then giving it away." A silence settled between them, warm and easy, no longer heavy with unsaid things. Then, from the porch, Lily called out, "Mr. Daniel, Clara, come see." They stood together and walked toward the house, side by side but not touching. Close enough to share the moment, distant enough to honor the journey. Inside the chapel, now filled with handmade quilts, children's drawings on the walls, and the scent of fresh bread from the kitchen, Lily stood beside a new mural. It showed a mansion with open doors, people of all ages walking in, arms full of hope. In the corner, two small figures stood side by side, one planting a rose, the other holding a toolbox. "Rosa helped me," Lily said proudly. "I made the man look like you, Daniel, and the lady, like Clara." Clara's eyes filled. Daniel knelt beside the little girl. "It's beautiful, Lily, but you know what's even more beautiful?" "What?" "That this place is real, not just in paint, but in people." Later, as the sun dipped below the trees, Clara and Daniel stood on the front steps, watching residents gather for the evening meal. Maria laughing with her son, Rosa leading a prayer circle, volunteers setting tables. "I used to think success meant being seen," Daniel said softly. "Now I know it's about seeing, really seeing people, their pain, their potential." Clara looked at him, the last of her walls crumbling. "You've changed, Daniel." "I didn't change myself," he said, turning to her. "God did, through you, through this place, through the quiet courage of women who refused to let pain define them." She took a breath. "There's something I've wanted to ask you." He waited. If we ever tried again, not as the people we were, but as who we are now, would you be willing to go slow? To let trust grow before love speaks?" His eyes shimmered. "Clara, I'd wait a lifetime to earn your trust again. But if you're asking whether I'd walk this road with you, hand in hand, heart open, no expectations, then yes. 1,000 times yes." She didn't say, "I love you." Not yet. Clara stood at the edge of the garden, watching Daniel kneel beside a group of teenagers, teaching them how to graft rose cuttings. "So the beauty keeps growing," he told them, "even when the old stem fades." He looked up and saw her, smiled. Not the polished, camera-ready smile of his past, but something quieter, deeper, like a man who'd finally come home to himself. Later, as dusk painted the sky in rose and gold, they found themselves alone on the porch, mugs of tea steaming between them. "I got a letter today," Clara said softly, "from the seminary. They've accepted my application." Daniel's eyes widened. "You're going to study theology?" She nodded. "Pastor Evans says I've been preaching through my actions for years. Now it's time to learn how to speak it too." He set his mug down, turned to her fully. "You'll be brilliant." "And you?" she asked. "The investors offered you that advisory role in Geneva. Are you going?" He shook his head. "I declined." "Why?" "Because my purpose isn't in boardrooms anymore," he said, voice steady with conviction. "It's here, in this soil, in these lives, in us." She looked down, fingers tracing the rim of her mug. "Daniel, what we're building, it's fragile. Love after betrayal doesn't come with guarantees." "No," he agreed, "but it comes with choice. And every morning I choose you, not because I deserve you, but because I finally understand what love really is. Not possession, but presence. Not control, but commitment." A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. "Do you remember our wedding vows?" she asked. "For better or worse," he said, voice thick. "In plenty and in want. I spoke them without understanding. Now, I live them." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, worn box. Inside lay 2 simple bands, silver, unadorned, forged from the same metal as the chapel's new cross. "I had them made," she said, "not as a redo, but as a renewal. If you're willing." He stared at them, breath-catching. "Clara, are you saying?" "I'm saying," she said, meeting his eyes, "that I believe in second chances, not because the past is forgotten, but because grace is stronger than memory." He took her hand, not to rush, but to honor. Then yes, 1,000 times yes. They didn't exchange rings that night. Not yet. Instead, they walked into the chapel, now filled with soft light and the quiet hum of evening prayers, and knelt together at the front pew. No audience, no fanfare, just 2 souls, bowed before the one who mends what's shattered. "I don't need a grand wedding," Clara whispered. "I just need you, faithful, humble, walking with me." "And I don't need a mansion," Daniel replied, tears glistening. I just need your hand in mine, and a lifetime to prove my love isn't just words. Outside, the wind stirred the roses. Inside, peace settled like a promise. Months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, they stood before their church, not as Billionaire and Castaway, but as Daniel and Clara. Restored not because they were perfect, but because they chose daily to love like Christ, patiently, sacrificially, without condition. And as they exchanged those simple bands beneath the stained glass window that once reflected only wealth, now glowing with the colors of grace, Clara whispered the truth that had carried her through the storm. True riches aren't in mansions or bank accounts. They're in a heart that chooses to forgive and a love that dares to begin.